I sat alone in my house on Christmas morning, staring at the photos on social media. There they were, my entire family gathered around a beautifully decorated table, laughing, toasting, celebrating, and there I was, 3 miles away, eating scrambled eggs in silence. This wasn't the first time. This was every single holiday for the past 12 years. My name is Claire, and I'm 71 years old. Before I tell you what I did that changed everything, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments. I'd love to know I'm not alone in this. Now, let me take you back to where this all started, because nobody wakes up one day and decides to disappear from their family without a reason. It began the year my husband Robert passed away. We'd been married for 43 years, and losing him shattered me into pieces I didn't know could be put back together. That first Thanksgiving without him, just 8 months after his funeral, I assumed my family would want me close. My daughter Jessica had always been the organizer, the one who sent the group texts and planned everything down to who brought which side dish. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I texted her asking what time I should arrive and what I could bring. The response came 6 hours later. "Oh, Mom, we're keeping it small this year. Just us and Tom's family. You understand, right? You probably want a quiet day anyway." I stared at that message until my vision blurred. A quiet day? I'd had nothing but quiet days since Robert died. The silence in my house was so thick I could choke on it. But I wrote back, "Of course, sweetheart, enjoy your day." I told myself it was a one-time thing. They were adjusting to new in-laws, and maybe I was being sensitive because of my grief. So I spent that Thanksgiving eating a turkey sandwich and watching old movies, pretending the ache in my chest was just heartburn. Then Christmas came. Same pattern. I saw the family group chat light up with plans. My son David was hosting this time. Discussions about gift exchanges, what time dinner would be served, whether to do White Elephant or Secret Santa. I waited for someone to ask me directly. Nobody did. Finally, on December 23rd, I called Jessica. "Honey, what time is Christmas dinner?" There was a pause, a long, uncomfortable pause. "Mom, didn't David tell you? We're doing Christmas Eve this year instead, and it's already happened. Last night. We thought you might want to rest." My hands went numb. "You had Christmas without me? Yesterday?" "We posted pictures, Mom. We figured you saw them." I had seen them. I'd seen my grandchildren opening presents I didn't know about. I'd seen the table set with Robert's mother's china, the china that was supposed to come to me. I'd seen everyone wearing matching pajamas that nobody had mentioned. Why wasn't I invited, Jessica? "You were invited, Mom. We just didn't want to bother you with the details. You've seemed so distant lately." Distant. I was distant because my husband died and my family had started gathering without me. That's when I knew something was very, very wrong. For the next 3 years, the pattern continued like clockwork. Every major holiday, every birthday celebration, every family gathering, I'd find out about it through social media or by accident. They'd post pictures of Easter brunches I didn't know were happening. 4th of July barbecues where my grandchildren played in pools I'd never seen. Thanksgiving dinners where my empty chair wasn't even noticed. I tried everything to understand what I'd done wrong. I replayed every conversation, every interaction. Had I been too sad after Robert died? Too needy? I'd always thought I'd been independent, never asking for too much, always respectful of their busy lives. I confronted Jessica again after being excluded from David's birthday party. She was turning 45, and I'd planned to take her out to lunch, just the two of us like we used to. When I called to arrange it, she said, "Oh, Mom, we already celebrated. Didn't you see the pictures?" "Jessica, why do you keep doing this?" My voice cracked. "Why am I always the last to know? Why am I never invited anymore?" She sighed like I was being difficult. "Mom, you're always invited. We just don't want to burden you. You're getting older and these gatherings can be overwhelming. We're trying to be considerate." "Considerate? You think leaving me alone on every holiday is considerate? You're being dramatic. We include you in plenty of things." "Name one. Name one thing you've actually invited me to in the last year." Silence. "That's what I thought," I said, and hung up. I started keeping a calendar, marking every event I discovered after the fact. By year 4, I had dozens of entries: David's daughter's ballet recital, Jessica's son's graduation party, a family reunion at the lake house. The lake house Robert and I had bought 40 years ago, the one that was supposed to be for all of us. They'd spent a whole weekend there, and I'd found out when David accidentally posted a photo with the location tagged. I drove to that lake house the next week, stood on the dock where Robert and I used to watch sunsets, and I made a decision. If my family could celebrate their lives without me, I could build a life without them. I was 70 years old. I had my health, my retirement savings, and absolutely nothing tying me to this town anymore except ghosts and disappointment. Robert and I had always dreamed of retiring to the mountains, somewhere quiet with clean air and hiking trails. He'd wanted to go to Montana. We'd even looked at properties once, years ago before his health declined. I started researching that very night. I found a small town called Cedar Ridge, nestled in the Montana Rockies. Population, 2,500. It had a senior center, a library, a farmer's market, and a community that actually seemed to care about its elderly residents. The cost of living was lower than where I was, and I could buy a beautiful little cabin with my savings. Over the next 6 months, I planned everything in complete secrecy. I listed my house with a realtor in the next county. I hired a moving company. I transferred my medical records. I opened new bank accounts, and I didn't tell a single family member. The house sold in 3 weeks. The buyers were a young couple expecting their first baby, and they loved everything about it. The garden I'd maintained for decades, the built-in bookshelves Robert had constructed, the sunroom where I'd spent countless mornings with coffee. Signing those papers felt like closing a chapter written in invisible ink, words my family never bothered to read. I scheduled the move for the week after Easter. It seemed fitting somehow. They'd have their Easter celebration without me, just like every other year, and by the time they noticed I was gone, I'd be over 1,000 miles away. That Easter, I didn't even check social media. I knew exactly what I'd see: pastel colors, elaborate egg hunts, mimosa brunches, my grandchildren in their Sunday clothes. I spent the day packing Robert's photographs into boxes, wrapping our wedding china, and labeling items for donation. The movers came on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday evening, my house of 47 years stood empty except for echoes. I slept that last night on an air mattress in the living room, listening to the sounds of a home that no longer wanted me, in a town full of family who'd already let me go. Wednesday morning, I loaded my car with the essentials I'd kept separate from the moving truck. My clothes, Robert's ashes in their urn, photo albums, and a box of letters he'd written me over the years. I took one last walk through each room, saying goodbye to the life I'd built, the memories embedded in these walls. Then I got in my car and drove away. The drive to Montana took 2 days. I stopped in small towns along the way, ate at diners where waitresses called me honey and meant it, slept in motels where nobody knew my name or my story. With every mile, I felt something shift inside me. Not quite freedom, not quite peace, but something close to possibility. I arrived in Cedar Ridge on a Friday afternoon in late April. The mountains rose up around the valley like protective guardians, still capped with snow even as wildflowers bloomed in the meadows below. My cabin sat at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by pine trees and overlooking a stream. It was small, just 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with windows facing the mountains. But it was mine. The moving truck arrived the next day. I spent the weekend unpacking, arranging furniture, hanging Robert's pictures on new walls. My neighbor, a woman named Patricia, who was about my age, came over with homemade soup and fresh bread. "Welcome to Cedar Ridge," she said warmly. "We're glad to have you. There's a potluck at the senior center every Thursday if you'd like to come. No pressure, but it's a good way to meet folks." I almost cried. Someone was inviting me to something. Actually inviting me. With details and genuine warmth. "I'd love that," I said. By the end of my first month in Montana, I'd been to 3 potlucks, joined a book club, and started volunteering at the local food bank. People here didn't just include me. They sought me out, valued my presence, remembered my name. Meanwhile, back in my old life, nobody had noticed I was gone. It took them 7 weeks. 7 weeks of me building a completely new life before my phone finally rang with Jessica's number. I was sitting on my porch with Patricia, drinking lemonade and watching hummingbirds at the feeder I just hung when it happened. I let it ring. Then I let it ring again when she called back immediately. The third time, Patricia looked at me with raised eyebrows. "Someone persistent," she observed. "My daughter," I said. "Probably just realized I haven't liked any of her Facebook posts lately." Patricia, who'd already heard my story over many cups of coffee, nodded knowingly. "You going to answer?" "Eventually." I took another sip of lemonade, but not today. The calls continued throughout the week. Jessica called 4 more times. David called twice. Then my sister Helen called, which surprised me. We hadn't spoken in months. I listened to the voicemails when I felt ready. Jessica's first message. "Mom, call me back. I stopped by your house and there are strangers living there. What's going on?" Her second message. "Mom, this isn't funny. Where are you? David and I are worried." David's message. "Mom, Jessica says you sold the house. Can you please call us and explain what's happening?" Helen's message. "Claire, your kids are calling me in a panic saying you've disappeared. They think something's wrong. Call someone and let them know you're alive." I texted Helen first, just one line. "I'm fine, enjoying my retirement. Tell the kids I'll call when I'm ready." She wrote back immediately, "Where are you? They're talking about filing a missing person report." "I'm not missing. I know exactly where I am. They're the ones who couldn't find me for the last 12 years. Then I turned my phone off for 3 days. When I turned it back on, I had 23 missed calls and a lengthy text thread in the family group chat I'd been passively watching for years. Seeing my name actually typed in those messages, seeing them frantically trying to locate me, discussing whether to call the police, debating what could have happened, it was surreal. Jessica had written, "Has anyone heard from Mom? She's not answering calls. She sold her house, and nobody knows where she is." David. "I called her old neighbor. She said Mom moved out 6 weeks ago with a moving truck. Didn't say where she was going." Jessica. 6 weeks? She's been gone 6 weeks and we're just noticing?" My cousin Martha, who I hadn't heard from in years. "Did you check with her friends?" David. "I don't know who her friends are." That message hit differently than he probably intended. Jessica again. "Mom, if you're reading these, please just let us know you're okay. We love you." I almost laughed. They loved me. They just loved me quietly from a distance, preferably when I wasn't actually present. I decided to call Jessica back, not because I felt guilty, I didn't, but because I was curious. What could she possibly say that would justify 12 years of exclusion? If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible to the people who should see you most clearly, hit that subscribe button, because what happened next changed everything. Jessica answered on the first ring. "Mom, oh my God, where are you? Are you okay? We've been so worried." "I'm in Montana," I said calmly, "and I'm perfectly fine." "Montana? What are you doing in Montana? Why didn't you tell anyone?" "The same reason you didn't tell me about the last 100 family gatherings, I suppose. I didn't want to bother you with the details." Silence. Then, in a smaller voice, "What are you talking about?" Jessica. "I haven't been invited to a family event in 12 years. 12 years of holidays, birthdays, celebrations, all without me. You kept me at arm's length so consistently I started to wonder if I was a ghost nobody could quite see. That's not true. We included you." "Did you?" My voice stayed steady. "Tell me the last time you actually invited me to something, not posted about it after the fact, not assumed I'd see it online, actually called me and said, 'Mom, we'd love for you to come.'" The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, "We thought, after Dad died, you seemed like you wanted space. You were grieving and we didn't want to overwhelm you." I was grieving my husband, Jessica, not my family, not my grandchildren, not my life. You decided I wanted space, and then you kept giving me more and more until there was nothing left but empty rooms and holidays spent alone. "Mom, I'm sorry. We didn't realize for 12 years? You didn't realize for 12 years that I was spending every Thanksgiving alone? Every Christmas? That I'd become a footnote in my own family? I could hear her crying now. Part of me wanted to comfort her like I always had, but a bigger part of me, the part that had driven 1,000 miles to start over, stayed quiet. "Where in Montana?" she asked. "David and I will come see you. We can talk about this." "I don't think that's a good idea right now. You're our mother. We have a right to know where you are." Something cold settled in my chest. A right? You had 12 years to exercise that right. 12 years to wonder where I was on Christmas morning. 12 years to notice my empty chair. You don't get to claim rights now that it's convenient for you. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. You want to talk about fair? I'll tell you what's not fair. It's not fair that I spent my 70th birthday alone because nobody remembered. It's not fair that my grandchildren don't know me because I'm not invited to their lives. It's not fair that I had to sell my house and move 1,000 miles away before anyone noticed I existed. We're trying to apologize. I don't want apologies, Jessica. I wanted invitations. I wanted phone calls. I wanted someone to notice when I wasn't there. But that ship has sailed, and frankly, I'm happier now than I've been in years. You can't just cut us out of your life. I'm not cutting you out. I'm just giving you what you gave me. Distance, space, the freedom to celebrate without the burden of including me. Jessica's voice turned sharp. So this is revenge? You're punishing us? No, sweetheart, this is self-preservation. There's a difference. I looked out at the mountains, at the life I'd built in just 2 months. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done waiting for crumbs from a table I helped build. What about the grandkids? Don't you want to see them? That question landed like a stone in my stomach. Of course I wanted to see them. I'd missed years of their lives already, watching them grow up in photographs posted by people who never thought to show me in person. I've always wanted to see them, I said quietly. But wanting something doesn't make it happen. You made choices about what kind of grandmother they'd have. You chose distant. You chose not quite part of the family. You don't get to be upset now that I've accepted the role you assigned me. Mom, please, tell us where you are. Let us fix this. I'm fixing it myself. I've made friends here. Real friends who actually invite me to things and mean it. I have a book club every Tuesday, a hiking group on Saturdays, and last week I went to a community barbecue where people saved me a seat without being asked. Do you understand what that means? People I've known for 8 weeks treat me better than my own children have in 12 years. I heard David's voice in the background. Is that Mom? Let me talk to her. Then David was on the line. Mom, this is ridiculous. You can't just run away from your family. I didn't run away, David. I moved forward. There's a difference. You didn't even tell us. You just disappeared. And how long did it take you to notice? 7 weeks. I was gone for 7 weeks before anyone realized. What does that tell you about how present I was in your lives? That's not... We've been busy, Mom. We have jobs, kids, responsibilities. I had all of those things too once, and I still made time for family. I still showed up. I still remembered birthdays and made phone calls and sent care packages and babysat and cooked dinners and attended every recital and game and graduation. Where were you when I needed someone to show up for me? His silence was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to live my life here. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm finally somewhere I'm wanted. If you truly want to be part of my life, you'll need to figure out what that looks like. But it won't be me begging for invitations. It won't be me checking social media to see what I missed. Those days are over. You're being selfish, David said. I laughed. Yes, for the first time in 71 years, I'm being selfish, and it feels wonderful. I hung up before either of them could respond. Patricia, who'd been pretending not to listen from her porch next door, called over, "How'd it go?" About as expected. Want some wine? God, yes. We sat on my porch until sunset, talking about everything and nothing. She didn't ask about my family again. She didn't need to. The next few weeks were peaceful. Then the letters started arriving. The first was from Jessica, 3 pages of apologies and explanations. She wrote about how overwhelmed she'd been as a working mother, how she'd assumed I wanted quiet time to grieve, how she'd never meant to hurt me. She listed all the times she'd thought about inviting me but didn't want to impose. She ended with a plea to give them another chance. David's letter came next. His was shorter, more defensive. He acknowledged they'd made mistakes, but suggested I'd been withdrawn after Robert died, and they'd been respecting my process. He wanted to bring his family to visit during summer vacation. Then came letters from the grandchildren, clearly coached, full of "I miss you, Grandma" in handwriting that varied from wobbly to precise. One from Emma, who was 15. "I don't really remember you that well, but Mom says you're mad at us. I'm sorry for whatever we did wrong." That one hurt most. She didn't remember me because she'd been 3 the last time I'd spent significant time with her. 3 years old, and now she was a teenager I'd watched grow up through Instagram posts. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I threw myself deeper into my new community. I volunteered at the library 3 days a week. I joined a watercolor class at the senior center. I went on camping trips with my hiking group and learned to identify birds I'd never noticed before. Patricia became my closest friend. She was a widow, too, had been for 8 years, and she understood the specific loneliness of losing a spouse while your family continues on without you. Her kids lived overseas and visited once a year. "They have their lives," she said without bitterness. I had to build my own. 3 months after my phone call with Jessica and David, my doorbell rang on a Saturday morning. I wasn't expecting anyone. Patricia was visiting her sister in Bozeman, so I approached cautiously. Through the window, I saw them, Jessica, David, and their spouses, standing on my porch, looking uncomfortable and determined. I almost didn't open the door, almost let them stand there until they gave up and left. But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see what desperation looked like on people who'd never had to work for my presence before. I opened the door, but didn't invite them in. "Hi, Mom," Jessica said, her smile uncertain. "Surprise? How did you find me?" David had the decency to look sheepish. "We hired a private investigator. Took him about 3 days. So you spent money to track me down but couldn't spend time including me in your lives." "Can we come in?" Jessica asked. "We drove 16 hours to see you." "You should have called first." "Would you have answered?" "No." Jessica's face crumpled slightly. "Please, Mom, we want to make this right." I looked at them, really looked at them. Jessica had new highlights, expensive looking. David wore a watch I didn't recognize. Their spouses stood behind them awkwardly, probably wishing they were anywhere else. These were strangers wearing my children's faces. "You can come in," I said finally, "but we're doing this on my terms." They filed into my small cabin, their eyes taking in everything. The simple furniture, the watercolors I'd painted hanging on walls, Robert's urn on the mantel with wildflowers beside it. This wasn't the house they'd grown up in. This was proof I'd built something without them. "Nice place," David said, his tone awkward. "It suits me." I didn't offer them anything to drink, didn't suggest they sit. Just stood there with my arms crossed, waiting. Jessica broke first. "Mom, we're so sorry. We know we messed up. We want to fix this." "Do you, though? Or do you just want to stop feeling guilty?" Her mouth opened, closed. David stepped forward. "That's not fair. We drove all this way." "Fair?" The word came out sharper than I intended. "Let me tell you about fair. Fair would have been one invitation in 12 years. Fair would have been noticing I wasn't at Christmas. Fair would have been caring about where I was before a private investigator had to tell you." "We were wrong," Jessica said, tears streaming now. "We were so wrong. But please, you're our mother. We need you." "You needed me for 12 years. Where was this desperation then?" Tom, Jessica's husband, spoke up for the first time. "For what it's worth, I told Jessica years ago she should call you more. This isn't all on her. Then it's on both of you." I looked at each of them. "Here's what I need you to understand. I'm not the same person you left behind. That woman who waited by the phone, who checked social media hoping for crumbs, who made excuses for being forgotten. She doesn't exist anymore." "We can see that," David said. "You seem different, happier maybe." I am happier. Happier than I've been since your father died. And it's because, for the first time in over a decade, I'm not waiting for people who don't show up. Sarah, David's wife, wiped her eyes. We brought the kids. They're at a hotel in town. Emma and Jack have been asking about you. They want to see you. My heart clenched. They don't know me. That's our fault, Jessica said. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Let us fix it. Please. I walked to the window, looked out at the mountains. You want to fix 12 years of neglect with one visit? No, Jessica said. We want to fix it with time. Real time. Regular calls. Actual invitations. Being the family we should have been all along. I turned back to them. Words are easy. Your father used to say that. Words are easy, Claire. Watch what people do, not what they say. Then let us show you, David pleaded. Let us prove we mean it. I studied them for a long moment. Here are my conditions. First, I'm not moving back. Montana is my home now. Second, if you want to be part of my life, you'll need to make the effort. That means regular calls, weekly, not when you remember. Third, no more assumptions about what I want. You invite me and let me decide. We can do that, Jessica said quickly. All of it. I'm not finished. I held up my hand. Fourth, you introduce me properly to my grandchildren, not as the grandmother who disappeared, but as the grandmother you forgot. They deserve the truth. And fifth, I paused, making sure they understood the weight of this. If you slide back into old patterns, if the calls stop and the invitations disappear, I'm done. Permanently. I won't give you another chance to make me feel invisible. The room went silent. I watched them process what I'd said, saw the reality settling in that I wasn't going to make this easy. Those terms are harsh, David said finally. Those terms are survival. Take them or leave them. Jessica looked at David, some silent conversation passing between them. Then she turned to me. We'll take them. We'll do whatever it takes. Fine. You can meet your grandchildren tomorrow, but today I need you to leave. I have plans with friends. Plans? David looked surprised. Yes, plans. I have a life here. You're not the center of it anymore. They left, looking shell-shocked, and I watched their rental car disappear down the gravel road. Then I called Patricia. They came, she asked. They came. And I gave them conditions. Strict ones. Good for you. You coming to the potluck tonight? Wouldn't miss it. That evening, I walked into the senior center and was greeted by name by a dozen people. Helen brought me a plate of her famous brownies. Marcus saved me a seat at his table. When I mentioned my children had come to visit, they listened with genuine interest but didn't press for details. Family's complicated, Helen said simply, but you've got family here too now. The next day, I met my grandchildren at a local diner. Emma was tall and beautiful. Jack was 12 with his grandfather's eyes. They were nervous, and so was I. I'm sorry I don't know you better, I told them honestly. That's not your fault, and it's not really mine either. But if you're willing, I'd like to change that. Emma looked at her mother, then back at me. Mom said you left because we didn't include you. That's true. She said it's because we were thoughtless and cruel. Jessica's eyes widened. Emma, I didn't say... You did, Mom. Last night in the hotel, I heard you crying. Emma turned back to me. I'm sorry, Grandma. I wish I'd known you were alone all those times. My throat tightened. Thank you for saying that. Jack, quieter than his sister, asked, Can we visit you here sometimes? This place seems cool. I'd like that very much. We spent 2 hours together. It was awkward and tentative, but it was real. When they left, Emma hugged me tight and whispered, I'm glad we found you. Me too, sweetheart. Over the next 6 months, something shifted. Jessica called every Sunday, without fail. David sent photos of his kids doing ordinary things, homework, soccer practice, making pancakes. They invited me to Thanksgiving, sent me the details 6 weeks in advance, asked my flight preferences, offered to pay for everything. I told them I'd think about it. Patricia and I discussed it over coffee. What does your gut say? She asked. That I want to believe them, but I'm terrified of being disappointed again. So guard your heart, but give them a chance. You've earned the right to do both. I accepted their invitation but kept my return flight flexible. I could leave early if needed. Thanksgiving morning, I walked into Jessica's house to find a place card with my name in the center of the table. Not at the end, not squeezed in somewhere as an afterthought, right in the middle between Emma and Jessica. My grandchildren showed me their rooms, their art projects, their collections of rocks and books and treasures. They asked about Montana, about my hiking, about the watercolors I'd been painting. They knew details about my life because their parents had actually told them. During dinner, David stood up with his wine glass. "I want to make a toast. Mom, we wasted 12 years. We were selfish and blind, and we hurt you in ways we're still understanding. We can't get those years back, but we're going to spend the rest of our lives making sure you know you matter, that you're wanted, that you're loved." Jessica added, "You taught us everything about family. We just forgot to practice it. Thank you for not giving up on us, even when we gave up on you," I cried. We all cried. But here's the thing. I went back to Montana after that weekend. I didn't move back to be near them. I didn't abandon the life I'd built. Because the truth is, I discovered something important in those mountains. I didn't need them to be whole. They visit now, regularly. They fly out for my birthday, for holidays, for random weekends when they just want to see me. Emma came for a week last summer and learned to paint with me. Jack wants to come hiking next spring. We video call every Sunday. They send me photos, include me in group chats, ask my opinion on things that matter and things that don't. They're trying, genuinely trying, and most days I believe it's real. But I also know that if they stopped, if they slipped back into old patterns, I'd be okay. Because I built a life that doesn't require their validation. I have friends who show up. I have a community that values me. I have mountains and hiking trails and watercolor classes and purpose. My family didn't abandon me because I moved away. They abandoned me years before that, one missed holiday at a time. Moving away just made it impossible for them to pretend otherwise. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save yourself, even from people you love, especially from people you love. I'm Claire. I'm 72 years old, and I finally learned that being alone is different from being lonely. And sometimes, the family you choose is just as important as the family you're born into.